Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome Duncan Taylor, the Director of Industry Solutions here at Microsoft. I've had the pleasure of working with Duncan over the past few months, and actually, just over the past few days, we've been spending a lot of time together. It's been really exciting. We just came out of an interview from eWeek, where we talked about Microsoft and manufacturing and how Aptus and Microsoft are working together. Today, Duncan's going to speak about the manufacturing process. I'm going to show you how Aptus and Microsoft are actually collaborating together on CPQ and speeding up the assembly line. Just a little bit about Duncan. Duncan has been at Microsoft since 2014. He's actually been a leader in the industry. He's spent 16 years in retail technology and 10 years in retail management. After joining the C&E team at Microsoft, Duncan moved into a new role focused on the vertical SaaS applications and working directly with partners like Aptus and finding new solutions that jointly on AppSource. Duncan is very passionate about this new way for users to discover applications through the leveraging of partners and advanced Microsoft technologies that deliver insightful innovation applications to the market. Away from work, Duncan is a frustrated golfer. He's a Montreal Canadiens hockey fan, a classic car enthusiast. He actually has a man cave that hosts his classic cars inside his home. I've heard about and seen. He's the owner of 3 cats and 1 crazy Labrador. So, on the stage, Duncan, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you very much, Cassandra. So when I was setting up my presentation and I gave Cassandra my profile picture, she said, "You look different than the profile picture. You've kind of," I said, "Well, yeah, you're right. I've got even less hair on the top of my head and I've grown some hair on my chin." So I thought turning that upside down would actually make it more relevant because all the hair's on the bottom. Okay, thanks for coming along. I want to make this an interactive session. I'm always very keen to make sure that it's just not me just talking to you. So we'll have a little Q&A and things, but if you've got any points you want to raise along the way, then I'm more than happy for you to contribute. The starting point of this, we're coming at it from an industry perspective, and you're going to see over time more and more work that Microsoft is putting into making sure that we're talking to an industry audience. And thanks to our partnership with Aptus and the work that they've done in the quote-to-cash arena, this is one of the ways that we're talking to industry. And in this example, it's manufacturing. Very conscious that that Aptus does a lot more than just manufacturing. I've seen plenty of the display material out in the conference, but we're focusing on 5 specific industries for a new initiative that we've got and a new marketplace that we've put together, and we're really wanting to talk to an industry audience about what's important in those industries. So absolutely, we're confident that Aptus can play into all those other industries, but we've really tagged onto their manufacturing expertise in order to put this together. So you can see in the manufacturing space, it's changing very rapidly. Manufacturers are evolving from a very physical world on deciding what to build, building in advance, and hoping what they build sells, very much into a digital world with smart products, ecosystems that deal with the servicing of the products after the build, and connected consumers that want to interact with those manufactured products in interesting ways. We've called it digital transformation. You'd have heard in the session that Chris Webber did yesterday, the digital transformation message that Microsoft has been spending quite a bit of time on, and how that applies into the different industries. And manufacturing is a really great example of that. I'm a huge fan of cars, okay? So if you get me with a beer afterwards and start me talking about cars, you won't be able to stop me, okay? So this is a really good example of lighting up where digital transformations occurred. Obviously on the left-hand side, you can see it's quite an old picture. It's one of my favorite brands there, MG, and you can see that manufacturing plant from the 60s, and those guys had it tough. They had to be making decisions way in advance of what production line was going to be, hoping that they were going to get sold and drive the production then for the next one, but the lead time on that was incredible. You evolve that to today, and we can talk about today being the very latest stuff towards the end of the presentation, but today you've got companies like Tesla that will be manufacturing to order. You'll be going into a Tesla, it's not even a dealership. You can actually call it a showroom. And in many cases, it's just one example car in the showroom, but the rest of it's all visualizations. And I know they're a joint customer. They're making use of Microsoft Dynamics 365, and I know they're a very strong customer of Aptus as well. So it's a great example of a manufacturer that's at the other end of the spectrum, where they're actually building cars on the back end of the order And the key thing for Tesla and people like Microsoft and Aptus to do is how to light up the visualization of what that car is going to look like through its configuration as you build it. So the modern challenges are putting pressure on it. As I said, the customer expectations is that they can see very quickly a representation of what they're going to be buying. They want to see the instantaneous response as to how much they're going to pay for it. And they want to be able to go through all of those different configuration options and very quickly get to a point of being able to respond to what the manufacturer is going to provide. IoT is very much coming into play as well. Once the product has been implemented and delivered, it's how the service operator can then keep an eye on that product and offer up service offerings to the manufacturer to keep that thing going. We may have some bird life joining us in the room. How to keep it going. So you heard in the keynote yesterday the example of ThyssenKrupp, where they're an elevator manufacturer who builds and installs elevators, and they built a whole service offering about once the elevator's installed, that preemptive maintenance in order to get to that elevator and do the servicing before the breakage, keeps it in operation, reduces down the maintenance cost dramatically, and obviously gives ThyssenKrupp a new line of business. The time to quote is now a deal breaker. Aptus and the Aptus customers know that more than anything because of the innovation that Aptus has put into the quote to cash arena. They're doing it because it's a response to market demand. There is not really a lead time on the requirements for production of quote and the delivery of it. The expectations are that high that it almost needs to be near instantaneous. So I'll be showing you an example of that in a little bit, and I confessed up front that it's going to be very pedestrian compared to the innovation that you saw yesterday in the keynote, using Max and the Cortana intelligence behind it to drive the quote via a Skype chatbot. Mine's much more boring than that, so I'll apologize right up front for that. And then, of course, lastly, it's probably the least interesting point on the slide is around the risk and compliance, that the risk and compliance requirements coming out of countries not only is not getting any less, but in some respects is getting even more because they're very much protecting what their interests and their interests of their consumers and things. So they're imposing that back right into the supply chain, right into the manufacturer, the manufacturing of the product, and obviously that's then driving manufacturers to need to respond to that more positively and more quickly in order to make sure that their lines are still reaching market at speed. Okay, I thought it would be a good idea, and this was actually prompted by Cassandra as well. I've talked about quote to cash, the basics. Aptus has done a fantastic job of putting together the workflow of what this means inside a product, but in actual how it surfaces up inside a manufacturer can vary, and that's where you need the variation and the flexibility of the products behind it. And we've been so impressed with what Aptus has done to bring some of those technologies, those Microsoft technologies to play and actually surface them in really interesting ways. So you can see this as a kind of a flow of the start to finish of a quote to cash example. So you're starting off inside your CRM system. Obviously, the example I'll use here is Dynamics 365 for customer service. You're then having to handle the complex configuration requirements that many products require. I guess that configuring a Tesla car is going to have one or two options, maybe. And then you're wanting to make sure that you're surfacing up those sales incentives to the sales teams because they'll be very much motivated by that. Related to that will be also how you're building in cross-sell and upsell into that process as well. Some of that cross-sell and upsell stuff may be mandatory things that are built along with the product. You have to do a cross-sell and upsell because a product may not be able to be sold, for example, without a warranty arrangement, and it's just a case of which one of those warranty arrangements are going to go along with the product. Some of those can be more interestingly derived from Azure Machine Learning and having the previous quotes and the previous sales of that product along with the things that are sold most along with it and have been most successful and have delivered the most the most margin and revenue to an organization, having those built back into the flow, so when the next sale of that same product happens, if that can be surfaced up, maybe with the help of Max, she can be recommending that right back into the sales process in order to drive up the basket. Then you've got the contract revisions themselves. Those can go through quite a lot of iterations, and having inbuilt contract management built into that, coupled with the communication mechanisms behind it and the digital surfacing of that contract. Again, you can be using a Microsoft product to help you there, with Word being the example. And then delivering that into your ERP system for the actual manufacture and delivery of that. So I'll talk about that again in a couple of minutes. So this is I'm not going to go through the entirety of this slide. For anyone that wants it, we'll make this available to you, but this is kind of like a nice visual that shows the opportunity being created, the configure price quote action kicking off, flowing into the contract and approve, going through the build out of the additional items that can go along with it, and then obviously then going back into the order and bill and fulfill process. And being a Microsoft dude, I'm always keen to know where the Microsoft things are going to light up inside that process. So you can see an overlay in blue there of when the Microsoft stuff occurs and some of that underlying technology that can help along the way. Again, I'm just calling out a couple of them. For example, the subassembly quote, having that hosted in Azure and having Azure Machine Learning support the things that go into that is fantastic. Having Dynamics 365 be the host of the customer and the system of record at the end of that enables you to keep a handle on the life cycle of that customer, and then actually building that right into the manufacturing process is fantastic as well. So you can then track the delivery, the production, and the logistics of the fulfillment of that build. Do you want to take a closer look? Oh, come on, guys. Okay, so I'm just going to do a very quick run through of the scenario where you can see the interaction between Dynamics CRM and the quote to cash work that Aptus has done. So you can see we're starting off live inside our dashboard here. I'm Joshua. I'm the sales exec. I've got quota, I've got responsibility for closing deals, and I've got this nice dashboard to help me understand that. I can look at my best customers, I can see where the opportunities are, and on that graph on the bottom left-hand corner there, I can see my average discount by product, so I'm actually running at quite a high discount, so I better look out for my sales manager coming to have a chat with me that I might be over-discounting, so I'll have to keep an eye on that one. A little bit further down, I'm looking at the open opportunities that I've got, and I can see there's one there that I'd like to spend a bit of time with. So we're going to zoom in on the Fabricam controller modules, and then we're in CRM. We're in the Aptus configured area of CRM at this point. So you can see that we've got that center bar there with the red line around it. You can see that we've got a nice flow of the things that we want to do with that customer. And we're at kind of like a series of proposal stages. So if I'll just take a quick look at that, then we've got a good handle on the things that we want to do there. And if I go back there, I can see that we've got a little bit of work to do. So I'm going to go in and kick off a quote. And we're just going to go into the product configurator. And now we're in the I'll call it the Aptus secret sauce. This is what the Aptus has done a fantastic job with in terms of the way that the products come together and the add-ons and that kind of thing that I mentioned earlier. So we're going to narrow this down quite quickly because this customer needs integration. So it means that that this product needs to be integrated with others. So this is going to narrow it down to the UD300 rotary die cutter. I hope you know what one of those is, Alan. Okay, good. So we're going to add one of those to the basket, and then that's coming up with a success plan. So it's going to default that you have to pick one of these, and we're going to pick out the last one there, and it's added that to the basket as well. And as I look at the cart, it's prompting me with additional items that could be sold along with that. So we're going to go with the Anilox roller, if that's okay. Is that okay? Okay, we'll do that. And we can now look at the basket, and we've got three items in there. I'm looking at the, I'm just going to look at the cart in a little bit more detail and see that there's a couple of items there, and I'm just looking at what that success plan looks like. I'm happy with that. It's going to be over a period of 12 months, monthly. I'm good with that. I'm going to come out of there, and I'm going to just take a look over that right-hand side. I'm a bit concerned that I'm maybe a little bit over the top on the price, so I'm going to go for putting a discount there and try and reprice that one. Oh, I've got a yellow marker showing up there. That's a yellow on the guidance here, so I'm going to need to understand that. And it looks like if I go for that discount, it's going to require manager approval, and he's already giving me a hard time for my overly discounting. So for now, I'm going to try and go around that and go with a lower discount. So I'm just going to hit 10% there, and we'll reprice that one. Okay, we're showing green. We're good to go. We're good for now. So I'm going to finalize that. It then maps it back into CRM, and we've got then we've then got the quote that's going on there. We can take a closer look at it, and now let's get this out to the customer. We can view the file here. It's built straight into Word. It's come up straight away. I'm going to check down to the bottom. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Let's close that out. And let's accept the quote. And it's gone. So that's one part of the quote to cash. That's just covered the quote area for it. And I think just, as I said, I had to apologize in advance that it's a little bit click and pedestrian compared to the work that Aptus has done with Lenovo yesterday on using Macs and the chatbot API built through Skype. So that was fantastic. So I was already feeling a bit sad when I saw that yesterday, because that was amazing compared to just this little simple click-through. But I hope you get the idea of some of the integration that's been done, the surfacing of the customer inside CRM and the holding of it there, then flowing into the Aptus specialization stuff with the building of that quote and how simple it is to get through it and out the other side and get the quote out. So managing the customer's expectations on the production of a quote, you can see I'm not a sales exec, but if I was, even I could use that. Okay, just going back into here, just a couple of examples. I'm sure you'll have come across these examples before elsewhere. Here it's a silicon construction company. They had objectives with their sales team to reduce the quote time. You can see the example there, just at the end there, that they've reduced their quote time from 3 weeks down to 3 days. So for the complexity that they have, that's pretty good, and they'll be happy with that. I'm sure they'll be trying to drive it even more, but 3 weeks to 3 days, that's a tick in the box for Aptus there, I think. And the second example, they're making medical equipment. They've got obviously a very different profile. And they started off at 30 minutes and used that as their target that they needed to reduce from, and got that down to 3 minutes. So for those of you that are into maths, that's a pretty good percentage reduction there, isn't it? So given that I had a little bit of spare time and I'm messing around with animations on PowerPoint, I thought, what do you think to these guys? Do you think they're going to be happy with that? Of course they are. Okay. So when you think of, I just hinted at this at the start, but when you think of the data that you're collecting along the way, you've got Aptus providing that awesome quote to cash stuff at the beginning to guide the sales exec through that sales process, managing through the configuration, managing through the contract, and then handing off into ERP for that. You've then got the in-place product. You've got the assets that's now in place that you can be collecting IoT information from. You've got information coming back from the supply chain around what the lead time of that product is taking. Any manufacturing delays that get built into that, we can collect from there. We've then got the servicing of it as well, and another bit of CRM is Dynamics 365 Connected Field Service. So you can now service out in the field those things and build in those proactive maintenance things in conjunction with IoT. And then obviously you've got the production data coming back that shows you the inline production and the lead time and what that's and how that's been generated. And the cool thing from that is the data. And the data you can then collect from all of that, host it in Azure, push it right back to the beginning, and use Cortana Intelligence and surface it using something like Max to then drive the decision making at the start of the next cycle. So I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty cool. And having that automated and built in means that we're not crunching through data to derive those insights. We're relying upon machine learning surfaced by Max to be able to bring those insights to life and deliver them in a really succinct way right to the audience. So just as a way of finishing, you saw this slide before. So we looked at what it was yesterday. We were bringing it up to date with very modern production lines. And then from what you've seen out on the Aptus floor, it goes beyond that. And we start looking at the cars of tomorrow. And yes, we can be with things like Hololens and having that visualization built in. Examples coming out of Hololens, or going back to ThyssenKrupp, is them looking at how they can use Hololens for the central office to see what's going on a maintenance visit of an elevator, and not only collect that data from visual, but also build that into information that you go back to the engineer with. That's fantastic. But even from a consumer perspective as well, being able to put on a HoloLens and have the HoloLens contribute to the configuration of that car that we were talking about in the showroom is fantastic as well. And if you're back out on the booth area and seeing what the work that Aptus has done, I was configuring a bike only yesterday. I'm a bit of a fan of cycling, and seeing that bike construction and seeing a visualization that I can look around this thing as it's being built, that's even cooler. And that's going to help drive manufacturers and retailers and automakers and that kind of thing to innovate with their end customer, not just the manufacturers. So if you have some time, we've been working with Aptus to bring the Aptus quote to cash to life in a new marketplace. It's called AppSource. So take a scan of the barcode or go to appsource.com, put in the search criteria of Aptus right into that search, and you can test drive some of that yourself. I was going through the quoting scenario here. We've been building these customer-led trials to enable a business decision maker audience to try out the application as well in a guided way. So my bit was quote. I think what Aptus has done to start with is the contract piece inside that, but it's in the context of quote to cash with lighting up certain aspects of that. So if you've got some time when you're back at your desk, go to appsource.com, put Aptus into the search, or find it under manufacturing, and delve in and try it out for yourself.
All right, if you have questions for Duncan of Microsoft, he's going to be over in the speaker area, and let's give him another warm applause. Thank you, Duncan. You're awesome.
Thank you very much.